The storm hit 3 hours before the forecast said it would. I was out checking the old relay tower on the North Ridge when the sky turned from gray to black in a matter of minutes. Snow doesn't fall gently on this planet. It comes sideways, in sheets, like the sky is trying to erase you. I had maybe 20 minutes to get back to the station before visibility dropped to nothing. I've lived alone on this frontier post for almost 2 years now. Just me, a supply drone that comes every 6 weeks, and a radio that mostly picks up static. I like the quiet. I like knowing that whatever happens out here, I only have myself to answer to. That night, I almost didn't make it back at all. I was halfway down the ridge, head down against the wind, when I saw something that didn't belong. A shape in the snow, low and still, half buried already. My first thought was that an animal had gotten caught out in the open. We don't have much wildlife here, but there are a few hardy creatures that survive the cold. Then I saw a second shape, smaller, tucked underneath the first one. I almost kept walking. The storm was getting worse, and every second I spent standing still was a second closer to freezing myself. But something about the way the smaller shape was curled against the larger one made me stop. It wasn't the posture of an animal. It was the posture of someone trying to protect someone else. I forced my way through the snow and knelt down. They were not human. That much was obvious right away. Their skin had a pale blue-gray color, like the sky just before dawn, and their limbs were longer and thinner than ours, built for a different kind of world. The larger one, who I would later learn was the older sister, had wrapped herself around the smaller one, using her own body as a shield against the wind. Neither of them was moving much. Their breathing was slow and shallow. I didn't know what species they were. I didn't know where they had come from. I didn't know if they were dangerous. None of that mattered in that moment. What mattered was that if I left them there, they would be dead within the hour. So I didn't think about it any further. I got my arms under the older one first, since she was closest to me, and pulled her up. She was lighter than I expected, which worried me more than it helped. Light usually means the body has already started giving up. Carrying 2 people through a blizzard is not easy, even when neither of them weighs very much. I managed to get the older sister across my shoulders and pulled the younger one along by wrapping her in my jacket and holding her against my chest. The wind kept trying to push me sideways. My legs burned with every step, but I had made this walk 100 times before, and my feet knew the way, even when my eyes couldn't see 3 feet in front of me. By the time I reached the station door, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely enter the code. I got us inside, sealed the door behind us, and let myself fall to the floor for just a second before getting back up. There was no time to rest, not yet. I laid them both near the heater and cranked it as high as it would go. Then I grabbed every blanket I had and wrapped them up, tucking the edges in tight the way you're supposed to for hypothermia. I checked their pulses, or at least tried to, since I didn't know exactly where a pulse would show on a body built so differently from mine. I found something steady in the older sister's wrist, faint, but there. The younger one's was harder to find, and for a moment, I thought I was too late. Then her fingers twitched. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I spent the next hour just watching them, feeding the heater, and checking on their breathing every few minutes. I didn't have a working medical scanner that could read alien biology, so I was working with guesses and basic first aid knowledge. I gave them water in small amounts, since I remembered that was safe for most carbon-based life, and kept the blankets tight. The older sister woke up first. Her eyes opened slowly, then went wide with alarm the moment she saw me. She tried to sit up too fast, wincing at the movement, and immediately pulled the younger one closer to her, putting herself between me and her sister even though she could barely lift her own arms. "It's all right," I said, keeping my voice low and my hands visible. "You're safe. I found you in the storm." She didn't understand me. That much was clear from the confusion on her face. I noticed a small device clipped to her collar, cracked down the middle, wires exposed. A translator, probably, and a broken one. That explained why we couldn't understand each other. I held up my hands slowly, showing her I wasn't holding anything, and backed away to give her space. She watched me the entire time, tense, ready to defend her sister if she had to, even in her weakened state. I respected that. I would have done the same for anyone I cared about. I pointed at the heater, then at the blankets, then made a small gesture like shivering, followed by a gesture like warming up. It wasn't elegant, but I was trying to say, I'm helping you get warm, not hurting you. Something in her posture eased, just slightly. She didn't trust me, I could see that clearly, but she also didn't try to run, and I think some part of her understood that running in her condition would kill her sister faster than staying. Over the next few hours, I did what I could. I found a spare translator unit in my emergency kit, one meant for basic trade communication with whatever species passed through this system. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I set it on the floor between us and stepped back again. She looked at it for a long moment before reaching out and picking it up. She turned it over in her hands, studying the design, then pressed a small switch on the side. A quiet hum filled the room as it powered on. "Can you understand me now?" I asked. She flinched slightly at the sound of the translator working, then looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe, or disbelief. "You are human," she said, her voice rough and quiet. "That's right. Humans are..." She paused, searching for words, or maybe searching for courage. "We were told humans are dangerous, that you take what is not yours, that you do not help." I sat down slowly, keeping my distance, and shook my head. "I don't know who told you that, but I saw two people freezing in the snow, and I helped them. That's all this is." She studied me for a long moment, the way someone studies a puzzle they aren't sure they trust the answer to. Then she looked down at her sister, who was starting to stir under the blankets, and something in her shoulders relaxed just slightly. "My sister," she said. "Is she going to be all right?" "I think so. She's warming up. Her breathing is steadier than it was an hour ago." As if on cue, the younger sister's eyes fluttered open. She was smaller, maybe still a child by her species standards, and the first thing she did was reach for her sister's hand. The older sister took it immediately, squeezing gently, murmuring something in their own language that the translator didn't pick up, probably because it was too soft for the microphone. The younger one turned her head and noticed me sitting a few feet away. Instead of fear, her expression held something closer to curiosity. She studied my face, then the room around her, then finally reached one small hand toward me, palm open, the way a child reaches for something new and interesting, rather than something threatening. I glanced at the older sister, silently asking permission. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. I reached out and let the younger sister's fingers brush against mine. She smiled, or did something with her face that looked like a smile, and said something quiet to her sister in their language. "She says your hands are warm," the older sister translated, her voice softer now than before. "They should be. I've had the heater running for an hour." That got the smallest huff of a laugh from her, quickly stifled but unmistakably real. Over the following hours, as the storm raged outside and the station held steady, they told me what happened. Their transport ship had been damaged during a routine flight, forced into an emergency landing on this world days ago. The crew had scattered while trying to signal for help, and somewhere in the chaos, the two sisters had been separated from the others. They had been walking for 2 days, following what they thought was a signal beacon, when the storm caught them in the open. "We thought we would die out there," the older sister admitted. "I told myself, if it came to it, at least we would be together." "You don't have to think about that anymore," I said. "You're safe here. I'll get you someone 05 to help once the storm clears, and we'll find the rest of your crew." She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her rebuilding something in her mind, some belief she had carried her whole life, that was now cracking under the simple, plain fact of what had happened. A human had found them in the snow, and had not hesitated. "Why did you help us?" she asked. "You did not know us. We are not your people." I thought about that question for a moment, because it deserved a real answer, not just a quick one. "I didn't need to know you," I said. "I just needed to know you were freezing and I wasn't. That was enough." She didn't say anything to that, but something shifted in her expression, something that looked like the last piece of her guard finally coming down. The storm broke 2 days later. I managed to get a signal out to a passing supply convoy, who relayed word to a nearby outpost that had contact with search teams looking for the missing crew. It took another day for a rescue shuttle to arrive, cutting through the last of the clouds and landing just outside my station. Before they left, the younger sister ran up and wrapped her arms around me in a hug I wasn't quite prepared for. The older sister followed more slowly, offering her hand instead, which I shook. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. I will not forget this. And I will not let others forget it either." "You don't owe me anything," I told her. "Just get home safe." I watched their shuttle lift off and disappear into the clearing sky, and then I turned back toward my quiet station, the same one I had lived in alone for 2 years. It didn't feel quite as quiet as before, and honestly, I didn't mind that at all. I never made a big decision that night in the snow. I didn't weigh the risks, or think about what species they were, or what it might cost me. I saw 2 people who were about to die, and I had the ability to stop that from happening. Everything else was just details. That's the thing nobody tells you about doing the right thing. Most of the time, it doesn't feel brave. It just feels obvious.